right, welcome to our War Media Bears recap. This week I'm with Joe Tanksley. I am Saul Rodriguez. How are we doing today, Joe?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Not bad, not bad. And of course, I'm sure most of Chicago is doing pretty well after that week 3 win over the Texans. The Bears took them down 23-20. Let's start off with just initial thoughts, man. What were your initial thoughts over the win on Sunday?
Well, it definitely wasn't pretty. It was pretty ugly, to say the least. But there was a lot of positives. The resurgence, comeback game for Roquan Smith, the running game. Was front and center, and the Bears were able to scrap one out against Lovey Smith coming back to Chicago.
Oh yeah, no, that was definitely the definite definition of a scrappy win. And the thing was too, the way I felt initially was just when everyone was saying, "Oh, the Bears 2-1, they got the win." I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, we're just a little better than the Texans. I think that's what happens after that is just how I felt. And
Yeah, I mean, the Bears aren't the worst team in the league, and they can hang their hat on that. You know.
exactly. Well, the main thing we'll start with the positives. The main thing that people were talking about was the run game and how good the run game
Mm,
was. The Bears ran for 281 yards. That was the 14th highest in franchise history and the most since 1984 when they did it
hmm
against the I believe it was the Cowboys. So, kind of, what were your thoughts on the run game and how well they did overall? And Khalil Herbert, whether it be that or David Montgomery, obviously went down. Khalil Herbert picked up the slack, but also just
hmm
Justin Fields, who obviously did not have a great day, but he was able to make up for a little bit and some of the run plays.
Well, I would say that the offensive line they did a great job of moving the Texans off the ball, and you look at the replays during the game, they were ferocious and pushing those guys off the line of scrimmage, and Khalil Herbert was able to step in, and they didn't miss a beat. He was able to rip off some pretty big gains, and ultimately that led to a Bears victory. I'm glad to hear that. I think Coach Eberflus said after the game that Montgomery is going to be day to day, and we'll know for sure on Wednesday, but it doesn't look like it's going to be too serious. But with Khalil Herbert, I feel comfortable with him, handling the load, in his absence. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, no, I hopefully everything turns out well with David Montgomery because but I will say this: as much as if he is out for a week or two or something like that, we're gonna miss him. It's nice to have, as you said, Khalil Herbert. I mean, I've always thought of Khalil Herbert as or for as much as we've seen him as a baby Montgomery because the way they
hmm
play, it looks like they could just run through a wall with that ball. So it's like it's a good thing that we have a guy like Herbert that could just step in and it's like they don't lose any momentum with the run game, and they were able to do that, especially even with like guys like Ebner stepping up also as well to be kind of Herbert's backup yesterday and get the job done. Now, going on to the next thing, a little bit of the negative when it came to yesterday was just more of growing pains for Justin Fields, and he was
hmm
8 for 17. And my over under before the game was actually 15 of throws. I was saying it's probably gonna be under 15 throws, but I missed it by a couple. But
hmm
it was more the same of him just, whether just the inaccuracy and stuff, all those little things. But definitely this season is gonna be when he's gonna have more room for error. What did you think initially when you saw the game and you saw just have Justin Fields have a little more of the growing pains?
Well, the thing about it, he didn't want to say it, but I'll say it for him. He played like ass. You know, so I got you back, Justin. I'm telling everybody out there that you played like ass. I know that's what you wanted to say, and he did. And
Yeah.
but that's what's going to happen when you're going to have a young quarterback. Especially his second year in the league, and already he has a new coach and a new offensive system. And so you're definitely going to take your lumps with that. And, we talked previously before the Green Bay game, he's going to have to understand and learn how to fit the ball and throw those balls and, throw the ball into windows. And, and, a lot of times when guys have a lot of talent and they play around, play with, guys with a lot of talent like he did with Ohio State, you're not always going to have guys running free like that. In the NFL, everybody gets paid to play. You know what I'm saying? So the room for error, the margin for error is that smaller. And so he's going to have to learn how to anticipate guys being open and getting the ball out on time, even though, he doesn't see them. So you're going to have to trust that they're going to be at their landmarks when they're supposed to be. And that's, that's going to have to take time. I think, um, he's going to have to develop that confidence in himself, and he's going to have to make some mistakes and learn from them, and I think, this is a good game, to learn and coach from, because you still come out with a victory, but you still have a lot of room to improve. And I know a lot of people were, kind of getting down on him because, he made the two interceptions and, two, threw two bad footballs, and it seemed like, Getsy and the coaching staff kind of lost faith in him. But you got to think about it, there's other guys in the locker room that are playing hard to win, and you know, they talk about the conservative nature of the game. Well, you're getting 281 yards rushing. You know what I'm saying? This is a game that you have to, you have to beat the Texans. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
This is a game, this is the game that you can't go out there and just, throw caution to the wind and, and whatever, that the chips fall where they may. You got to go out there and beat the Texans, because you
Mhm.
can't be the worst team in the league. And so I think the coaching staff has done a good job so far of insulating him, because, how, people want to say, well, let's just go let him chuck it. But how, what does that do for Justin's confidence if he's the reason they lose the game? And so I think, this is still a coachable moment, and you still get the victory. And ultimately, this is something that he can go back and look at and improve from.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you made a good point in the sense of with the whole, it's a different game from from the NCAA, like when you're playing in college and stuff like that. And I remember I forgot what pundit it was, but they made a point in saying he's coming to the NFL, and not everyone's open as they were at Ohio State. And now more guys are getting covered and more pressure and stuff like that. So he's
Mm-hmm.
not used to that. And, hopefully it does take just a couple of seasons for him to like get a little
Mm-hmm.
more used to it. But yeah, you definitely, you kind of like a little bit of accountability that he has in that sense where you say, oh yeah, you played like trash or like ass, like he's wanting to say. But yeah, as I said before, this is the season where he's going to have, who knows what happens the rest of the way. But if he has more
Mm-hmm.
mistakes, it's okay because it's kind of like this season. Not everyone expects anything from the Bears necessarily when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to wins and losses. So definitely was another room to grow. Was another game to grow. And another thing too that I was gonna say was that, and we talked a little bit before getting on here, was the fact that he had that moment last week where he kind of cleared up his words a little bit of like what we know that was. And obviously
Yeah,
you definitely have something to say about that, right? What do you want to say?
I mean that was made up, and I think, I think part of the bad thing about living today is, like, it's real easy for people, just people who are paid to, look and listen for things that sound weird or awkward, and they take it out and leave the
Hmm.
context away. And that was an unfortunate moment, when for the for Justin Fields, it's only his second year, but he's been pretty transparent with the media and honest with himself, and and with us as far as what's going on and the things that he needs to do to develop. And I think, it doesn't take a rocket science to understand what he's saying, what he meant. That's still the guy's livelihood. They go out there and risk brain damage and injury and all
Hmm.
this stuff. So you're like, yeah, what I'm saying? Yeah, they take it a lot harder. What I'm saying? No one wants to go out there and, being, what's it equivalent to, 3 to 5 car crashes?
Yeah.
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then lose.
Hmm.
What I'm saying? Think about that. Those guys go out there, play, and it's the equivalent to 3 to 5 car crashes in one day. You know,
Yeah.
no one wants to go out there and lose.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's the thing too, is like, yeah, it was blown out of proportion, like the definition of that. And but I do like in the sense of that he was able to, call it out and be like, hey, this is not what I meant, or this is not what I said. So
Mm-hmm.
at least, that's the one thing I like about it. And also just the fact that, like, yeah, with Justin Fields and the way that he handles himself, I think yeah, it's like I like the way that, like, his honesty as well, in the sense of
Mm-hmm.
he tells it how it is, because let's be real. Like
Mhm.
every NFL player, let alone quarterback, when they lose a game, I bet you $1 million they don't want to be out. They don't want to be like come to a room full of journalists and hear those questions. Obviously not. So it's a
Mhm.
completely human to have a little bit of just not necessarily disgust, but kind of just like, man, just like I don't want to be here. So
Right,
it,
and here's the thing: if he had done that, you
yeah,
know, how many people would have understood?
yeah,
Saying,
yeah, you're right.
he would have been buried even more. And
Hmm.
so I don't think that I don't think his confidence is going in himself is going to waver. I
Hmm.
think he wants to improve, and he's going to do the things necessary to improve.
Hmm.
And pretty soon it'll come together for him. Right now, the Bears have a very strong running game to lean on, um, and they have a coaching staff that's going to protect him from losing games. You know, and I think you know nobody wants to be the reason. No, none of those players want to be the reason why they lose the game.
Hmm.
And that's the worst thing, for a quarterback is to be the reason the team loses. And the quarterback is the most important position on the field, and it's also the hardest to develop because so much mental goes into it. And you don't want to break him, early. This early in his career. You know, and and some people say he either has it or he doesn't. But at a certain point, a lot of this stuff becomes learned behavior. You know what I mean? And we don't want to get too early. We want to put them in you want to put them in situations to succeed. And people, all we have to do is just go back a few years. People were crying for the run game. What I'm saying? They were crying for these things. They were begging for these things, and it never happened. And now it's happening. And they're helping the quarterback. So they're doing things to help the quarterback succeed. And they're winning games with it. So, we don't have to, sometimes you get what you ask for, and this is what it looks like. You
Hmm.
know, not everybody is going to be able to be a Patrick Mahomes and get Andy Reid, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelsey, Kareem Hunt. You know what I'm saying? In the first couple of years of the season, not everybody's going to be Justin Herbert and get those guys that he has. So that doesn't happen very often. More so not. If you're getting drafted in the first round as a quarterback, those teams are at the top of the list because they're bad.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so you're gonna have to kind of grow with that. You think about how Matthew Stafford was in the Detroit Lions. They lost and lost and lost and lost and lost, and finally he had to go someplace else.
Hmm.
So and these things happen. I mean, we can go back and look and see how quarterbacks have developed. Ben Roethlisberger took about a year or two to develop, two or so years. Tom Brady took about 2 seasons to become Tom Brady. These things happen.
No, yeah, that's true, and it's also just the fact that uh the speed of the game is obviously way different from college, and also when it comes to that, I just remember the comments that I think it was one of the analysts, the one that was on the analyst for the game on Sunday, was saying that Damon Pierce, the running back for the Texans, they were asking about the speed of the game, and he was saying there's like a game within a game within a game. It's like it's just the speed
Mm-hmm.
of the game is crazy, and we saw plenty of his talents on the field. Man, he got his first career
Mm-hmm.
touchdown, and before the game, I said that was one of the things I was looking at for the Bears to watch out for was Damon Pierce and kind of like him and hopefully he didn't go out and have a big game, and he necessarily did not have a big game, but he had a solid game nonetheless, and he was able to show his talents. What did you think of that young player? And kind of he was mostly the difference. I think also it was a thing of kind of how the Bears were gonna, react to a quarterback like Mills and seeing what he did. Not that he's, like I said it before, not that
Mm-hmm.
he has a big he's a big name, but when it comes to Bears, being a Bears fan, we know we've seen plenty of games where they get dunked down by quarterbacks we never heard of. So a guy like him, they were able to contain him, and he wasn't, he didn't do much. But kind of, what did you think about the young running back and the young offense for the Texans?
Well, you can definitely tell that this was a game that Lovie Smith wanted to win. He wanted to come
Hmm.
back to Soldier Field and walk away with a W. And they showed some clips of him on the sideline. It's the most animated that I've seen him on the sideline ever. He was letting the refs have it and all of that. And I was just like, oh man, he really wants this game. And I think they came in with a solid game plan, to beat the Bears. Both of the teams were pretty disciplined. Not a lot of penalties on both sides. So and the styles kind of similar, mirrored each other. They both play the cover two defense, base defense, and they both, rely heavily on the run game. I will say though that the difference in this game though is that we had Roquan Smith.
Yeah.
And Roquan Smith was, he didn't play well against Green Bay, but he was able to come back and bounce back, and he had a monster of a game. You talked about, Damian Pearson. He did play well, but Roquan, stuffed him in the red zone a couple times for loss.
Hmm.
That was the difference in the game. Roquan was able to get an interception late. That was the difference in the game. And I would say the impact that Roquan had on the game was one of the, besides the running game, that was the biggest reason the Bears were able to win, is because, his performance.
Yeah, and yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That was going to be my next point in the fact that Roquan Smith was huge in this game. 16 tackles, 2 for loss, and of course that interception. So it wasn't necessarily just the run game, but it was obviously it's easy to talk about the offense, but the defense obviously stepped up when it needed to.
Also, I would like to point out,
Hmm.
before we, move on, is that, Kendall Door was being
Hmm.
picked on. He was being picked
Hmm.
on.
Yeah.
Sorry, but he stuck with it. He
Hmm.
stuck with it, and he was able to make a play in the end zone
Oh
that,
yeah, his
took
it was
years.
his hand, right? He batted it in
It
the
was,
air
yeah,
for
he was
the
able to
interception.
deflect that ball that Eddie Jackson
Hmm.
intercepted, and it still stands. The Bears are 12-0 when he has the interception. So,
Yeah.
you know, he was very important in the game, and you think about how like Justin said, Kendall Van Dora is was ass. Just put it out there, and he still might be. He still might be, but but he kept his head in the game, and he was ready when it was time to make his opportunity. When it was his opportunity to make a play, he made it, and that was also a key factor in the game.
Yeah, no, that is true. And I could tell I just feel like I heard Bill Dora's name so much yesterday, and when it came
Mm-hmm.
to coverage but also I did want to talk about overall what this win means to next week. Now, obviously the Giants game's still going on right now, so we won't necessarily know if they're still undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of real quick, what do you think is your little sneak peek into next week?
Well, here's the thing: the Bears will have an opportunity to go 3-1, and you take these games week to week, and the biggest thing is going into next week is Saquon Barkley. Is a man on a mission. He's 100% healthy, and he's running hard, and he leads the league in rushing. We won't know if that's going to happen until the end of the game. Because the NFL is very week to week, and things change so quickly in the NFL. But the Giants are in a position to be undefeated right now. As tonight goes, and they got a new head coach too, and they got their own culture that they're trying to instill over there. And a lot of people, wanted that Brian Daboll in Chicago. They thought he would be a good fit for Justin Fields. I thought he would too, and so they're trying to do their thing, and the two teams pretty much in the same position. I don't know if the Bears are going to have to really get solid and sound in those run fits and what they do defensively to stop the run, especially against a player like Saquon Barkley. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. if we can have if Roquan can start stacking these games, and we can get Jalen Johnson back on at the corner position, and these guys can start putting these games together. I think it's definitely a winnable game, but the Giants, they get paid to play too, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, it's true. And also, uh, regardless of what type of football they've been playing, or I really hope they win tonight because it would just be nice to go into the Meadowlands and be able to kind of put, I guess, poke a hole in their party or kind of
Mm-hmm.
deflate that situation kind of, and it would be fun in general, regardless of because people might even they were talking about it now that they were like it's like a fake 2-0 where it's like not even anything impressive or whatever, but
But the
I don't.
thing, I mean, people say fake, but it's really hard to
Yeah.
win football games, professional football games. It's really
Mhm.
hard to win professional football games, and some of the teams that we thought were going to be good are playing horrible right now. They
Mhm.
can't. The Chargers, they're 0-3. The Raiders haven't won a game. And so it's when you can get those victories, you can't take that lightly. You
Mhm.
know, you can't take that lightly. The Minnesota Vikings almost lost one at home to the Lions. You know,
Yeah.
so it's hard to win these football games. The Colts just went into Kansas, beat Kansas City at home. In Indianapolis. So you know, and the Colts tied with who did they tie with? They tied with the Texans, and then they
Yeah,
lost
they
to
did.
Jacksonville,
2020. Hmm.
and then they come back in week 3 and beat Kansas City. It's hard to win, and that's in the NFL. And that's the most important thing that you got to take away is the NFL is very week to week, very week to week, and as the weeks pile up, as the season goes on, more bumps and bruises, saying more aches and pains. Um, it changes.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. And yeah, like I'm just like at this point, I'm like, I don't even care what anybody thinks about, the 2-0, maybe 3-0 Giants. I'm like, I just want to see the
Mm-hmm.
Bears go in there and win and be able to, move to 3-1 and so on. So, and they have a good
Mm-hmm.
chance. I mean, as I say, the Bears have a good chance of not only being 3-1, but who knows, 4-1. And I believe because I think after next week they face the Vikings, then they face the Commanders. Winnable games. So, but we'll see. It's kind of a flip of the coin. You could really, say anybody can win those games. So it'll be
I
good
mean,
good to watch
I
for sure.
I looked at the schedule. I looked at the schedule
Hmm.
of who they're facing. Let me pull it up real quick
Hmm.
since we get into prediction mode.
Hmm.
But so the Bears get Daniel Jones next week
Hmm.
in the Giants. Then they get Kirk Cousins in the Vikings.
Hmm.
Then they have Carson Wentz in the Washington Commanders, and then Brian Hoyer, who might play if Mac Jones is hurt,
Yeah, yeah.
and then Cooper Rush. And so
Hmm.
I mean, the people say that you get a chance to those guys don't scare you. Those are not boogeyman players.
Yeah.
Those are not boogeyman names. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's not Tom Brady. So those,
Hmm.
you know, you as a defense, you feel pretty confident you can have a shot against those guys. So those are very winnable games. So we'll see. It's shaping out favorably. You know, yeah, and they really don't have that hard of a schedule.
Hmm.
And so we'll see. I don't I don't think they have a lot of talent, but they're definitely not the worst team in the league. And they've been well coached to this point, as far as playing with discipline and playing with that hustle, that intensity, and that
Yeah.
tackling and that smart sound, whatever. What's that? The hits principle.
They hit. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, they've seemed like they've bought into it, and you know, and if they can keep stacking wins, the more believable, Coach Eberflus and his staff become.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and also it's one of those seasons too where you're like, see what happens. We're not. I don't think I don't think it necessarily, I guess, real Bears fans would say, not like not a meatball take would probably be like, oh man, we're they're gonna be mad that we're like, I don't know, 5-12 or whatever. But real Bears fans know that this is just another year of progress. Whatever we get is
Mhm.
extra. Whatever positive we get is extra. So hopefully they can keep
Mhm.
doing that going on to next week at New York at the Meadowlands. And like I said, hopefully it's a 3-0 Giants team, so we can take them out. But we'll see. But that will do it for this Bears recap for War Media. Thanks for joining me, Joe, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Peace.